Alright, so we've been talking about factoring all week, and each day we have been learning a different method or pattern in order to factor polynomials. So Monday we talked about the sum and difference of squares and cubes. Yesterday we talked about when we had 4 terms in a polynomial that would use factoring by grouping. Okay? Well, today if we're given a trinomial, we are not going to be able to use the methods or patterns that we've discussed before. So today we're going to have to learn the pattern in order to solve a polynomial with 3 terms. Okay? So when we're working with a polynomial of 3 terms, we want to remember the standard form of a quadratic. So that's ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are our coefficients. Now this is important because when we're working with trinomial, we're going to have to find our coefficients. So for this first example, our coefficients are going to be 1, because anytime there's an x squared, there's a 1 in front. So our a is 1, our b is 2, and our c is 3. Or our c is 1. Apologize. Okay? So whenever we see a trinomial, the first thing we want to do, the first step, is find our a, b, and c. And that's only the coefficient. Okay? Now, anytime the method that we're going to use today is the AC method. And the AC method, what we're going to do is scratch work to the side. I'm going to rewrite our problem. Okay. We're going to write to the side AC and B. Now, AC is A times C. Anytime we have 2 coefficients or variables next to each other, that's multiplication. So AC is telling us A times C. So what we're going to do is, with the A we found in the C we found, 1 and 1, we're going to multiply those 2 together. So what's 1 times 1? 1. And our B is just going to stay the same. So our B is just going to be 2. Okay? Once we find AC and we find B, the next step is to factor the 1. So what are the factors of 1? 1 and what? 1. 1 and 1. Yeah, it's that easy. It's not a trick. So 1 times 1 will give us 1. And once we find, in this case, this is the first example, so it's relatively easy. 1 only has 1 set of factors. Now if AC was like 8 or 1,422, there might be more set of factors. Okay? Well, in this case, once we find all our factors, we want to find the set that once we combine will give us our B. So 1 and 1 is our only set of factors. How can 1 and 1 combine to give us 2? 1 plus 1. Very good. And the reason I say combine is because sometimes it might be we might add, sometimes we might subtract. It just depends on our B. Does that make sense? So combining, we know it can either be addition or subtraction. So once we find this is what we're going to use. Okay, we want to circle this. So that's the pair of factors that we want to use. Now, once we found a pair of factors, we're then going to split that middle term to the factors we found. So 1 plus 1, that 2x is now going to become x plus x. Everything else stays the same. So this 2x split into the 2 factors we found. Why do you think we would want that? Yes, then we can do the grouping. So we just turned this trinomial to a polynomial of 4 terms. And we know when we have 4 terms, we can factor by grouping. So really, this is nothing. The only new part is this first step. Everything that we do now is going to be what we did yesterday. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is what? Yeah, so our imaginary line, right? Okay, just so we know that we're splitting it into 2 and 2. And then once we do that, we're going to group both sides. And what's the step that we're going to take now? Yeah, so we're going to factor out an x on the left side. What is going to be left? Very good, x plus 1. Okay, now, do you guys notice anything? Yeah, so we already have an x plus 1 here. We already have what we want the factor to be. So what can we factor out of x plus 1 that will keep it the same? 1. So if we factor out a 1, we're left with 1 times x plus 1. And once we get here, we can do what? What's the last step? Yeah, so we're going to factor out that common factor of x plus 1. So once we factor that out, we have x plus 1, and then we're left with the x plus the 1, and that's going to go in the parentheses. And that is our answer. So how hard was that? Not that bad, right? It's almost a review of what we did yesterday. The only difference is we're starting with a trinomial and we're splitting this middle term. And we do that through the AC method. So the next example that we're going to do is x squared minus 11x plus 28. So just as before, our first step is to find our A, our B, and our C. First step is to find the coefficients. So what is our A going to be? 1. Very good. What is our B? Negative 11. And our C? 20 what? 28. So we have a trinomial. So we're going to want to use the AC method. So we're going to have our little scratch work or side work. Have A, C, and B. What is AC going to be? 28. Our B is still negative 11, and we're not going to change the negative 11. We're just going to leave that the same. And now we have to find the factors of 28. What are the factors of 28? Okay, 2 times 14 is 1. Will any combination of 2 and 14 give us negative 11? No. Okay, so what was the other one you said? Okay, 1 and 28. Will any combination of 1 and 28 give us negative 11? No. Alright, so what is another set of factors? Close. 4 and 7. Now, will any combination of 4 and 7 give us negative 11? Negative 11. What can we do? Negative 4 and negative 7. So negative 4 minus negative 7 will give us negative 11. Does that make sense? Okay, that's why we want to say combine or combination, because it's not always going to be addition and it's not always going to be subtraction. So once we find the two factors at work, we want to circle it so we know those are the two that we're using. And we're going to split that middle term into our two factors. So that's going to become x squared minus 4x minus 7x plus 28. Now the classes earlier, they asked me, they said, do these two terms that we just found, do they have to be in this order? No, they don't. So it doesn't matter. We could put the 7x first or the negative 4x first. the important part is that just that we make sure we split them into these two, the two that we found. So now that we have a polynomial of 4 terms, what can we do? Very good. Put them in the groups. So we can factor by grouping. Okay. In the negative 7x plus 28, we're going to put that whole thing in parentheses. What are we going to factor out on the left side? X. What are we left with? X minus 4. The right side? Negative 7. Very good. Why did you choose negative 7 and not just 7? Exactly. We want the x to be positive. So by factoring out a negative 7, we will get what we want. So now that we have matching factors, what's our last step? Yep, factor them out. So we have x minus 4, and what's left? X minus 7. Okay. I have a question for you. If we look, and I know it just above the whiteboard, I'm trying to get everything on the same screen. But if we look at what our factors were in our answer, and the factors that we chose in our answer, what do you guys notice? 1 and 1, 1 and 1, negative 4. Yeah, they're the same. They're the same. So don't get too excited, but there's a shortcut we can take. There's a shortcut we can take to skip all of this work. Okay? And the other thing to notice is that our coefficient, our a, our first term, was a 1. Coefficient of the first term was a 1. Coefficient of the first term here was a positive 1. Yes. So anytime there's a positive 1, we can use the shortcut and jump. So for example, let's go ahead and use it. Look at number 4, or number 3, I mean. X squared minus 11x plus 28. So now, that is, oh, sorry. Thank you guys. X squared minus 2x minus 8. Thank you. So now, when our thought process needs to be, what kind of polynomial this is. Okay, this is a trinomial. So since it's a trinomial, we want to use the AC method. The next thing we want to look at, can we use the shortcut? Is our a positive 1? Yes, so we can use the shortcut. So when we using the shortcut, the first couple steps are going to be the same. So we're going to want to find our AC and our B. What is our AC? Negative 8. And what's our B? Negative 2. Okay. So now we want to find the factors of 8. What are the factors of 8? So let's just say we have 2 and 4, right? What combination of 2 and 4 will give us negative 2? Positive 2, negative 4. And this is where the shortcut comes in. Now that we've found the factors, we can just substitute that into our answer. So it'll be x plus 2 and x minus 4. That's it. And we know that we can do that based off what we did before, the pattern that we picked up. So one possible, we want to do this. Okay. Now it's still important. The reason why we still learn how to do the whole process is because the AC method is going to work every time. Okay? Regardless of what the coefficient is, we'll be able to use the AC method. Because we're not always going to have a 1 there. We're not always going to have a positive 1 there. We might have a negative 1. Okay? So the AC method will always work. Now, the next example, although I just said we won't be able to use it with the negative 1, we can if we outsmart the problem. Okay? So this is number 4. Negative x squared minus 2x plus 48. Okay? So I'm lazy. I don't necessarily like doing the whole process. So when I can, I'm going to try to use the shortcut. Now I said it has to be a positive 1 right here, right? Is there anything that we can do to change that into a positive 1? Is there anything that we can factor out? Yeah, we can factor out a negative 1. And if we factor out a negative 1, what's going to happen to the whole polynomial? Yes, all their signs are going to change. So that's going to become what? Positive x squared. What is this? Plus 2x. And how about the last term? Minus 48. So now if we just focus on inside the parentheses and just ignore the negative 1, the negative 1 is going to stay there. We now have an a of 1, right? If we just look at inside the parentheses, we have an a of 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for the polynomial inside the parentheses and just remind ourselves or just take note that there's going to be a negative on the outside. Okay? So just looking at the polynomial inside the parentheses, what is our AC? What is A times C? Negative 48. 1 times negative 48 is 48. What is our B? 2. Okay? So we're going to take the same steps. We're going to find the factors of 48. What are the factors of 48? What's the easiest one? What's the 1? So 1 and 48, will any combination give us 2? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little hint. Okay, anytime our b is small, we want to find the two factors that are closest to each other. Okay, does that make sense? So we want to find the two factors of 48 that are going to be the closest to each other. So every time we can list out every factor. Or if we just know our b is small, we can try to just find the factors that are going to be close to each other. So 6 and 8, very good. Now we just have to see if 6 and 8 will work. Is there any combination of 6 and 8 that will give us 2? Very good. 8 minus 6, so a negative 6 and a positive 8. Now that we've made the coefficient a 1 inside the parentheses, we can use the shortcut inside the parentheses. So we'll write our negative 6 and 8 as our answer. So the x minus 6 and x plus 8. And then we can't forget about this negative 1. So that negative is just going to stay on the outside. And this is our answer. So how many of you guys are lazy like me? It's okay to be lazy sometimes. Alright. We want to, or we would like to, use a shortcut whenever we can. So anytime we can use it, and anytime that we can factor a number or negative out to make the a term 1, let's do that. And then let's use the shortcut. Would you guys like another example? How do you guys feel about it? Okay, cool. Alright, have a good day. Peace.